Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
My being a fan of Sholay and being a lover of Sholay and wanting to impress Mr. Ramesh Sippy and wanting to show the world that I can uh, do a sequence which is somewhat like that or nearly as good as that or whatever, you know. And so from there emerged this train sequence of mine, which then you will see a lot of shots where the camera is right near the railway tracks and the wheels go past and stuff like that.
I still remember the craze for Dhoom when it came out in 2004. It was pretty crazy. Dhoom had a solid cast, great music, good humor, and above all, slick contemporary action. Back then, it wasn't too often that we got to see in Hindi films good world-class contemporary action, which didn't seem dated. So for fans of action films like me, Dhoom held a special appeal. 2 years later, the franchise was back with Dhoom 2, supersizing everything, including the action. It's been little more than 15 years since Dhoom 2, but even today, both the Dhoom films remain immensely enjoyable. They remain two of the best and biggest action films of last 20 years. This is Himanshu, and you're listening to the Love of Cinema podcast. When I approached Sanjay Gadhvi, director of Dhoom 1 and Dhoom 2, to invite him on the podcast and asked him to pick a movie to talk about on the pod, he asked me if Sholay had been covered on the podcast before. I told him it wasn't. He said, look, let's do Sholay. There can't be a bigger film than Sholay. Let's do the biggest film of all time. Gadhvi likes to dream big and make big films, so his pick shouldn't be surprising to anyone. But before moving on, as always, an important request to all listeners of the podcast. If you enjoy organic conversations centered on Indian cinema, Love of Cinema podcast was created for people just like you. So do consider subscribing. Independent pods like this one don't have a platform for amplification and distribution. Independent pods rely on amplification through its listeners. So if you like the episode, and I can't harp on this enough, please share the episode on social media, because that's the only way people would discover the podcast. So again, if you like the episode, please do share with your friends. Also, do take a minute to review and rate the podcast. That would be much appreciated. Back to today's episode. When Sanjay asked me if we could do Sholay, I said of course we could. How could I pass on a chance to chat about the biggest film of all time with the filmmaker who gave us two of the biggest action films of my generation? By the way, I would hate to relegate Sanjay just as the director of Dhoom and Dhoom 2. He has of course made several other films. Among them, probably the most memorable YRF rom-com, Mere Yaar Ki Shaadi Hai, and an interesting action thriller called Kidnap, which had Imran Khan cast against type. But I digress. Let's get back to Sholay. So much has already been said and written about Sholay over the years that you might be wondering, what exactly would I be listening to on this episode that I already don't know of? We have made an attempt to add something new to the discussion around Sholay by trying to break down some of the action in the film. For example, Sanjay talked about how Salim Javed built on the characterization through the action scenes, as well as the craft of those massive action scenes in Sholay. He shared some personal anecdotes around the film, as well as anecdotes around editing of Sholay. He was also kind to share a few bits from the times when he hung out over drinks with Ramesh Sippy. We talked a fair deal about Ramesh Sippy, and I shared an anecdote about Sippy's incredible attention to detail. Sanjay also talked about the homage to Sholay in the Dhoom films, and as he likes to call it, a celebration of Sholay. Talking about Sholay among friends is fun, and we all have done it hundreds of times. Getting to talk Sholay with the director of two of the slickest action films of last 20 years, at least for me, is a rare opportunity. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully, you will too. Here goes. Sanjay, how are you doing?
I'm very good, Himanshu. It's a pleasure talking to you, and I'm really glad that we're doing this. We've been wanting to do it for quite some time, but I'm finally we're sitting down and doing this, so I'm really glad. And actually, you know what? Anytime you ask a director to talk about either his film or his favorite film, they're most happy to do it. So I'm also like that, more than happy to do it. So it's a pleasure, Himanshu. Just shoot and let's talk.
I have always said this, and I don't say this just because you're on the podcast show today, but you can check my prior tweets over the years or something. Dhoom and Dhoom 2 are really landmark action films. And, I think that we don't get too many good action films in Hindi. So it's very rare that we get good action films. And I'm so glad that the person who made those is going to be talking Sholay with us today. So I'm really, really looking forward to this.
Thank you. So am I.
So, Sanjay, let's just set up our talk here in terms of Sholay, because Sholay is such a big film and, it's a bona fide classic. Almost everybody has seen it. Classics become classics over the years because how well they age, right? So some films don't age that well, but Sholay is the kind of film that has aged really well. Their appeal continues to endure, their magic continues to work. Why do you think all these things check off for Sholay, even after 47 years now, and the film remains one of our tallest classics?
Before I say anything, let me just say that I think Sholay is absolutely a classic, arguably one of the best films made from India ever. Not only from the box office and the period of time that it had a successful run in the cinema halls, but from so many different aspects, from creating stars to the director peaking, to being innovative in its execution, the writing of it. There are no words, as in anything that you say about that film. It is less. The words will run short of words. So it is an absolute classic. And the question that you ask is why is it still aging so well, and why is it still so relevant and all those things. I think the writers got it right. The primary credit for it goes to Salim Javed, the writers, that they got it right in terms of the content, that it is a story which is universal. It could actually be seen in any language, anywhere in the world. It was relevant in its time of release. It was ahead of its time in its own way. The characters were ahead of their time. They were relevant during that time. But the primary credit goes to the writers for having come up with that script, which is near perfect. And then comes the director's job. Mr. Ramesh Sippy did such a fine job. The producer, his father, GP Sippy, had the vision to, or rather, had the understanding to support and stand by his son, Mr. Ramesh Sippy's vision of the film. And so, in its execution of the shot taking or the filming of the action sequences, were way ahead of its time. I don't think anyone was spending that kind of money, were not involving foreign technicians. Like I said, there's so many aspects of it that every thing was perfect in its creation, in its execution, in its inception. So while being relevant to its time, it was ahead of its time, and the writing was brilliant, and it's just something that will stand the test of time. I think for another 100 years, it would be absolutely magical. The film.
Right, right. A word on Ramesh Sippy while we're talking about the directors. Like you said, of course, due credit to Salim Javed because they are the ones who wrote the story. But Ramesh Sippy was 28 years old when he made Sholay. And, he was 32 when he made Shan, which is another favorite of mine, in terms of action movie. But Sanjay, just talk a little bit about Ramesh Sippy. I mean, a 28-year-old guy has this vision. He's able to execute on it. And then, this episode is not about Shan, but few years later, 5 years later, he makes another film, which is like an urban action thriller. Doesn't quite work at the box office, but just the audacity of that film as well. And even then, I mean, he's barely 32.
I would say that I've interacted with him, Mr. Ramesh Sippy, and I've had the good fortune and the privilege of sitting and chatting with him, having a drink with him, asking him questions about Sholay and stuff like that. And this is post me having made Dhoom, so he kind of was in a comfortable space to chat with me and all those things. Because like I was making him aware of how his film had inspired me and an entire generation of filmmakers. And, there are sequences which in my film are a direct correlation to his film Sholay and stuff like that. So from the time that I spent with him socially and just hanging around at a bar, uh, I kind of gathered that he was an extremely well-read man, is an extremely well-read man, very eloquent, very knowledgeable, very intelligent, an intellectual man. So I presume that from a young age, because his father was such a big producer and a director, he was inclined towards cinema. He had seen world cinema. He had seen foreign films, English films, American films, and he was very, very strongly influenced. And he absorbed all the cinema that he saw as a youngster, as a teenager, and he absorbed it like a sponge, And then when he got his chance to make direct films under his father's company, he made a film called Andaz. Then he made a film called Sita or Gita, and I think Sholay was his third film. So by then he had evolved and he had experimented with the different kinds of stories and stuff like that. And then I think when he got this script from Salim Javed, who at the time were working literally, I think, and they've said it in their interviews also, Salim Saab and Javed Saab, that the production house called Sippy Films. So Sippy Films had a story department, which was called the Sippy Film Story Department. And Salim Saab and Javed Saab were literally, I think, if I'm not mistaken, on a salary to be creating and writing scripts for the company. And so when I think when Ramesh ji must have got the script in his hands, or when the idea was shared with him, he must have gotten excited and he must have wanted to jump at it, and he must have been involved in the visualization and in the giving the vision to the writers that I want something like this, I want something like that. So I can literally imagine, I can be a fly on the wall there in a dream of mine. Then I think he must have really gotten involved in it and given the opportunity to the writers and inspired them to write the balanced stuff. And because he could see the film in his head, I think, and the scale of it, and while being qualifying to be an international story, it's very hardcore mainstream Indian film. At the end of the day, the values are all Indian, and the characters are Indian and identifiable. It's like a Western in Hollywood. So it's got everything. Whatever you say is less about it. I think Sholay is outstanding.
Yes. One of the things that stand out about Sholay is that, although there is a lot of referencing, like you said, it's essentially an Indian twist to the mythos of a Western. And, there is homage to everybody from Sergio Leone to Chaplin to Peckinpah, everybody. But like so many Salim Javed films, which were often derivative, but all of it was done so nicely and weaved together so nicely that, it becomes a very rustic kind of an Indian setting. And that was, I think, one of their, plus points as writers, because they were able to kind of source all these things from different literature, films, but they were able to shape it in such a way that, it felt very Indian, it felt very something that we could relate to. So that's certainly there in Sholay. Sanjay, just going back to what you said earlier, there's a lot of similarity between the action in Sholay and Dhoom that you were talking about, and you mentioned that when you were having a drink with him. I wanted to talk about the craft of the opening train action sequence in Sholay. and also the action sequence in Doom 2. Doom 2 essentially also opens with action sequence set in a desert in Namibia. So, if you could talk a little bit about that, and like you said, what was the actual influence, or did you study that sequence in Sholay in terms of the craft? And because I heard that that action sequence took many days in, when they were shooting that
I,
sequence in
yeah,
Sholay.
yeah, I think nearly 25 days to film it. Well, it would be wrong of me to say that the entire train sequence in Dhoom 2 is totally inspired by the one in Sholay, because every story is different, and the demands of the story are different.
Right.
But what happens is, I am a 70s kid, and Sholay released in 75, in the middle of the 70s. And so I was, I think, barely 9 years old, and I watched it tens of times, 50 times over the next 3 decades, 4 decades. I just was watching it about 2-3 months ago again on a OTT platform. So every generation, every director from my generation who was a kid in the 70s has to be under the influence of Sholay, whether they like it or not. And so always there is something at the back of your mind that you want to ape it, you want to emulate, you want to be like that person, and you want to be like that film, you want to make the film like that, or you want a sequence like that. Let me just digress a bit out here. Like, I'm a big, huge fan of Quentin Tarantino, and what I like about him the most is the fact that he celebrates uh, all the films that he has seen in his life. So every film of his is a celebration of all the films that he has seen and loved right from the time he was aware of films. And so that is the true way of making films, which is why I think that he is one of the greatest ever. And I kind of, without making exactly and specifically the same kind of cinema, I believe that my filmmaking style is that I celebrate each and every film that I've seen. And for me, since I'm making films for the Indian audience and in India, I'm celebrating all the Indian films that I've seen. And then what happens is, subconsciously and consciously, you tend to celebrate Sholay, depending on what degree of influence it has had in your life and your career. And for me, I eat, like, again, I wouldn't say I'm the only one and I'm the biggest fan of Sholay, like everyone says, but I eat, breathe, and live every scene, every shot of that film so much that I draw parallels to it all the time. And so, coming back to your point about the opening train sequence, is that it's always it's a fanboy moment, like if Dhoni is talking
Right.
about
Right.
being a fan of Tendulkar, then he's going to talk about that. Virat Kohli is going to talk about Tendulkar. So, and then you're trying to do things like him, you're trying to do things to impress him. So also subconsciously. So I think it's there in every filmmaker's mind. Oh, I want to do a train sequence like Sholay. So that is was there subconsciously in my mind. There was also the entire big strategy of having a very high impact opening sequence in Dhoom 2, so that it would help us in making the people uh, a bit distracted from prejudging a sequel, because you always tend to run the risk of everyone saying, oh, one was better than two.
You're right.
So it was partly my strategy, which I shared with Aditya Chopra, my producer of Dhoom, that we must have an opening sequence that is so high impact, such great entertainment and production value, and well done, that the viewer should be under the influence of that sequence right up to the midpoint of my film. By then, they will be sucked into the film and they will be with you, rather than giving them time to judge, oh, is this better than the first one, or is it better than, like, there's a saying that, when you make a film out of a book or a novel, then there's a lot of people say, oh, the book was better. And when there's someone who makes a sequel, then they say, oh, the first one was better. You know, world over, in American films, British films, everywhere. So being conscious of that, I wanted a, a high impact sequence. And then when you start to think of high impact sequences, you slide into it becoming a train sequence somewhere, because uh, in that merges my being a fan of Sholay and being a lover of Sholay, and wanting to impress Mr. Ramesh Sippy and wanting to show the world that I can uh, do a sequence which is somewhat like that or nearly as good as that or whatever, you know. And so from there emerged this train sequence of mine, which then you will see a lot of shots where the camera is right near the railway tracks and the wheels go past and stuff like that. But yeah, the whole thing is that you're carrying that, for want of a better term, you're carrying that baggage all the time. You want to be as good as the best film that you've seen. You want to be as good as the best directors whose work you've seen. And so I think that is what drove me to ideate on this train sequence, Himanshu.
Got it, got it. And what do you think makes the train sequence in Sholay so great? I mean, first of all, it was like shot almost 50 years ago, and even today looks really stunning. And like you said, it is also an high impact sequence. But what about it stands out even today for you as a director, as someone who has actually made films, someone who has actually made action films?
I think the fact that they took their own sweet time to shoot it. The producer, Mr. G.P. Sippy, understood the vision of the director, understood the fact that you need to give it time. Action sequences always take time. You have to get the safety when you try to re-stack the whole sequence and take another take. You have to again set up the entire thing. The horses have to go back to point one. The train has to go back to point one. So it's time consuming. So for the producer to back it and to allow the director and the unit and the crew to do that over a number of days, maybe 3-4 weeks, I think they shot Sholay's train sequence, is the primary foundation of the sequence. Then comes what a lot of people don't know, but if you see the credits very carefully, they had a foreign cinematographer who was a trained, specialized action cinematographer. If I'm not mistaken, his name in the credits will come as Jim Allen. Way back in 1973 and 74, when they're shooting this film, Mr. Ramesh Sippy had the idea and the smartness, the brains to say that, and even the humility to say that, uh, let's get in some for a foreign collaboration. Let's get in someone who knows more than us to frame it, because when you're doing action, it's not just about the action that is happening in the frame, but it's about how the frame is capturing it, the lensing of it, where to place the camera. If you have to do a big shot like the train crashing through the wooden part, the barrier that was put on the railway tracks, or any such important thing where it's a slow motion shot and you need to cover it with 2 or 3 cameras, then where to place those 2 or 3 cameras. Not everyone knows that, and then if you were to get in someone who knows about that, has been doing it in the West, where they have a different approach to filmmaking, getting those technicians from abroad is the second big thing that Mr. Ramesh Sippy did. And then you have, I think the big thing was the train being available to them and that lonely track that they got. So you don't have to worry
Right.
about other trains passing by. You have the freedom to shoot it how you want, which is exactly what I did in Dhoom 2. That we were in Namibia and it is in the Namib desert. And on the railway track that we had, there's one train that comes in every 2 days or 3 days, for which our train had to be taken onto a side track and allow the train to pass. Besides that, there was no train passing by on that track. And so we had the train, we could, and the producer again backed my vision, saying that, so we literally had the train rented for those 10 days that we shot the sequence. And we would be all on top of the train and we'd say, okay, take it back there and take it back here. And okay, we are on top of the train. Now we are on the side of the train. We are doing this, we are doing that. So having that train to yourself, uh, maybe designing the carriages. Oh, I need an open one here. I need a half one here. I'm going to have an explosion here. I'm going to have a coal engine, and I'm going to have Dharmendra's character Viru putting in the fuel from here, and all those things. And then Himanshu comes the final reason why the sequence is so big is the editing. So the minute you shoot something for over 3 to 4 weeks, nearly between 3 to 4 weeks, about 24 or 25 days, if I'm not mistaken, they shot for, which means you're just rolling the camera, and you're getting hours of footage. The
MS
editor,
Shinde is an absolute legend.
MS Shinde, I was just going to take his name. Legend has it. I'll tell you an anecdote. I was an assistant director on a film called Patthar Ke Phool, which was starring Salman Khan and Ravina Tandon.
Right.
It was Ravina Tandon's first film and my first film as an AD. And it was produced by Sippy Films, that film. And so the editing of Patthar Ki Phool was happening in the same editing room where all of Ramesh Sippy's films were edited, from Andaz, Sita Aur Geeta, Sholay, Shan, Shakti, all the other films. And there were these three attendants who used to be working there, who were there from that time. From them, I got a story, which is a brilliant anecdote. And this is legend. I don't know whether it's true or no, because we are on record here and we are recording out here. Is that the footage was was sent to the lab. It got printed in a rush print, and it came to the edit. And Mr. Shinde was flummoxed to see the amount of footage that was there. And Mr. Ramesh Sippy came in after a shoot was over, and he walked into the editing room and he said to Shinde Saab, what do you think? He says, I have no clue. This is so much footage. I think it's going to take us a long time. So you better be prepared to sit for a long time. And Ramesh Sippy just looked and said, okay, fine. I'll see you. You edit sequence and call me when it's ready. And he went out because he said, I can't deal with this. And he told Shinde Saab. And then Shinde Saab sat and he edited the entire sequence. And the rest is history.
Wow,
So it's a
lovely
combination
story.
of it's combination of all these things, and then you cannot ever forget the fact, which is which I would say again, because I said in the beginning of our talk that when we talk about Sholay, is that Sholay is what it is primarily because of Salim Javed, and for them, in those days when in a script there would be an action sequence, the writers would just, or the writer would just say, and here there is an action sequence, and the director would give it over to the action director will shoot it. But here where it's Sholay and the action sequence is this train sequence, if you see that in minute detail, you observe it, there are so many small things that are there which are so important to the screenplay. They are so important to the characterization. It's like Viru's character is the fun-loving guy, so he's at the engine. He takes out a bottle of alcohol from his pocket. He takes a swig. He makes the engine driver have a little bit. When they crash through the wooden barrier, he gives a hoot to the train. And then he literally rubs his hands and he smacks his palm, and he gets involved in an action sequence, and he runs from here to there and he blows up things. And how well they work as a team together, Jay and Viru. He goes here and he goes there, and then the train sequence ends, and that is such an important thing in the film, because that train sequence is the very reason Thakur's character recalls these two and hunts for them, and then gives them the assignment and the job and bounty hunter job to uh, get Gabbar Singh for for him because he wants to take revenge. So you see the entire layering of that action sequence, that it's not in isolation. It's not just a song. It's not just an action sequence to put in to entertain the viewers and show them production scale, and or let's show them a train action sequence. So I would say that my Dhoom 2's train sequence is 10, 15, 20% of what Sholay's action sequence is, purely because for me, at the end of the day, it's just a spectacular opening sequence. I mean, it serves the purpose of showing how good my thief Aryan is. He's the master of disguises. And he's very good at action. He can sandboard, and he can get onto the top of a train and do a stunt, and he gets away, and no one can get him. And he had the balls to jump off a plane or helicopter and land with the parachute on the train. But if you take that out and you put another action sequence there, which serves all these purposes for my characterization, it's okay. But if in Sholay, the point at which it comes and the recall value of it and how it applies itself to the screenplay, it's 5x of any train sequence that you can ever see in any Hindi film. So that is the train sequence, my friend.
Yes, the
and it stands the test of time.
Detailing and in all of that screenplay is amazing. I mean, and like you said, over the years, like some of us have seen this film, dozen of times or dozens of times.
And let's not forget R.D. Burman's background score. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, that we can talk for 10 hours on just the train sequence. Forget Sholay. So we'll keep on remembering, oh, this guy did this, and then there's Viru Devgan's action. Ajay Devgan's dad, he was the one credited with the action sequence. And obviously there is the director of photography, Dwarka Devecha, who's there with Jim Allen, and they had a few foreign action conceivers and action directors from abroad, America, who were there. So it's everything. And at times Pancham Da just goes into a little tabla, and it's just a little percussion going, and they stop the background music at the right time, they resume it at the right time. It's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. Absolutely. There's no words. I can go on and on.
The score is absolutely brilliant, like you said. And
Yes.
Pancham and Ramesh Sippy combination, is one for the ages. And especially since you brought up the tabla background piece in Sholay, and also the tabla on the tarmac, which is what I call for the Shakti, when Bachchan is being chased by Dilip Kumar and the climax. That is just something else. I mean, it
even
adds
the tabla
so
in
much.
The background. And the tabla in the background, sorry for interrupting you. So tabla in the background when Basanti's
Yes.
Tanda is being chased, they get into the tabla space.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of creating the thrill, the part of creating that thrill in the thriller kind of, way.
Yeah.
I wanted to share an anecdote about Ramesh Sippy, Sanjay, and I'm sure that you know about this, but for the listeners, Sholay was a film that was projected in 70 film. And when projecting 70 film, the carbon rods in the projector arc lamps, they used to burn faster than when you're projecting a 35mm film. So I remember Ramesh Sippy once mentioning in an interview that he literally used to walk into the projection rooms when Sholay was playing in cinemas to ensure that the carbon was replaced in time. Because if the carbon wasn't replaced on time, the arc lamps would dim and the screen would appear less brighter than normal. And people would think, what's going on? I mean, is it a night scene or something?
Yeah.
So it's the level at which he cared about it, the level at which he was, willing to go even after the film had released is amazing. And that tells you about his dedication. And so it's a nice little anecdote that I've always enjoyed about this film, and that says volumes about, speaks volumes about Ramesh Sippy.
Yeah. Totally believable. He's the kind of guy who would do that. And he's very down to earth, very simple, very humble man, very soft spoken. He has a deep, rich baritone voice, but he's such a simple man and so humble. You just, so if someone doesn't know him by face, he wouldn't be showing off or saying anything. That guy wouldn't even know it's Ramesh Sippy. He's such a simple and down to earth man, and he's so intelligent and he's so sharp and he's such a great filmmaker.
Did you guys ever chat about Dhoom and Dhoom 2? What did he say about those films? Did he like those
No,
films? What was his feedback?
he said, Sanjay, these are such entertaining films, and you've done such a good job. I'm so proud of you, Bacha and Beta, and all those things, because he's much older than me. I mean, he did get into the details of it. Oh, I like this and I like that, and I like how you did this. But it's so difficult for me to remember exactly, because when he starts to say something good about what I've done, so I was like a little bit of, I was
It's
floating.
a fanboy moment
Yeah,
for
it's
you.
a yeah, so yeah. So I was floating, and I was saying that, uh, is this really happening? Let me pinch myself and stuff like that. But all I can remember is that he loves both the films, and he thought they both were damn good, and especially the first one is like a cornerstone. It's like a cornerstone. It changed so much in Indian films, from an action point of view, from a edit point of view, from a costumes and styling point of view, and all those things. Things are different in Indian films post Dhoom. So like they say, when the Gregorian calendar started from 1 AD, so that's 1, 2, 3, and then it's AD, that's Anno Domini. Uh, Before that, it was BC. So I also very, very tongue-in-cheek way, I say that there were films which were before Dhoom, and then there was after Dhoom. So AD stands for after Dhoom. So if there's any films made 6 years after Dhoom and they've got a little bit of influence of Dhoom, they'll say, oh, that's 6 AD.
No, absolutely. I mean, like I said, earlier, that both the Doom films, they are landmark action films. And like I said, we don't get to see really good action. Recently, War was a pretty good film. I really enjoyed
Yeah,
War.
yeah,
That was a good
yeah.
action film. That was a well-made action film. But we don't really get to see, world-class action films. And I think Doom and Doom 2, we can safely say that, both of those are world class.
But
And
Himanshu, the point comes out here. Sorry again to interrupt you, but the point comes is that you see, when a filmmaker like me, and I say that I'm influenced by a Sholay, I'm not just influenced by one or two aspects of it. I'm
right,
influenced by
right.
Sholay in its entirety. And so, therefore, if I'm able to point out to you, which you might already know, but our listeners might be enlightened to the fact that at the end of the day, the action was woven into the script. It's very important to the screenplay. And if you were to study the action and the action sequences in Dhoom, you will see that they are all woven into the script. It's not just uh, for decoration purposes, or just as a start to finish action sequence, which is a standalone thing. It's woven into the screenplay. It takes the story forward. It makes the viewer aware of the kind of character this person is. The story element, if I'm incorporating Ali's character, who's the funny guy,
Absolutely.
who played by
Right.
Uday Chopra, when I incorporate him, and I'm at the same time I'm giving importance to him, I'm making him chase with the bike, and uh, the story moves ahead with the action. It's what the whole film, especially in Doom, the first one, is the soul of the film is motorcycles, and so the bikes have to go fast, uh, because that is the essence of the story, that the guys who are doing the robberies are so confident of never getting caught because they have these super bikes, and if things come to a touch and go situation, then they have the turbo boost to give that extra burst of speed to them, and so they're not going to be caught by the cops. Now, if that is what the entire film is all about, so therefore then the action is organic to the story and not just coming from outside, because Action films have been there in India for donkey's years, and at the end of the film, every hero is fighting with the bad guys and taking revenge. The bad guys got the heroine, and the heroine and the hero's mother held hostage, and everybody put down your guns, and then he comes and everyone fights at the end of the Hindi film. So it's taken for granted. But when I say that I'm under the influence of a Sholay or any other great action film that has happened, it's because I'm taking it in entirety, and I'm absorbing every aspect of that film and its sequence, and what were the good things about it, and why it ran, and why it had that impact. And then you celebrate it, and then you celebrate it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, there's so much Sholay in Doom, like you said. I mean, right from, the characters are is literally called Jay Diksha. And there's so much Viru in
Oh,
Ali.
it didn't strike me. It didn't strike me. Oh, wow. Okay,
Come
it
on,
didn't.
you're
No,
kidding.
no,
Right,
I'll tell you now that you say it, that, oh my God, Jay and Jay. But I'll tell you, my writer, Vijay Krishna Acharya, whom we
right.
call Victor, and I keep telling him that he's one of my favorite people in the world, because he wrote uh, uh, Dhoom and Dhoom 2, and he's credited with all that screenplay and the great funny dialogues and all that stuff. Uh, he is, I think, more an Amitabh Bachchan fan than me also. And since his name was Vijay in real life, so he used to keep thinking of himself as Vijay and Amitabh Bachchan, because most of Amitabh's characters were all called Vijay by Salim Javed. So I think it must have been his thing to call him Jay. Strangely, 18 years after the film, I'm now thinking of Jay Dixit's name being as the same as his father's name in Sholay. It had not struck me. Imagine,
Yeah, yeah.
here's an anecdote by itself.
No, I mean, and there's so much of Viru in Ali that it's very palpable. So even that, I mean, the dynamic between the two, and so that's definitely there. And like you said, that
Yeah,
subconsciously inside you, since that love for Sholay and that
that's
celebration
there.
for Sholay is
That's there.
definitely
That's
there.
there. That's there. And now that you say it, then I think I can do a good segue into the next thing that I want to say about Sholay's inspiration and influence on Dhoom, the first one. That I have a song in the film which is called Dilbara. So Abhishek's character and Uday's character are on a stakeout, which they think is the neighborhood and the area in which the robbery is going to happen. They did the stakeout for the entire day, but they didn't get anything, and now they're there in the night. And then Aisha Deol's car comes there, and actually later on we learn in the film that she was part of the gang, but that time she's just claiming to be a girl whose car gets spoiled. And from there we go into a song which is again very cleverly woven into the screenplay. But when the song was being conceived, and we were sitting with the songwriter Sameer Saab, who is the son of the legendary Anjan Saab. Sameer Saab was writing, and I said to him and to Aditya Chopra that, I said, this song for me, because originally it was just a song between Uday's character and Aisha Deol. And I said, no, I want to incorporate and have Abhishek's character participate in the song. So there was a reaction to it that, no, but he's a serious guy and he's not going to be able to sing and dance. I said, no, I don't want him to sing and dance. Here, let me tell you how I am seeing this song. I'm seeing this song like the first Tonga ride in Sholay, when Jay and Viru land at the railway station, and they're supposed to go to Thakur Sanjeev Kumar's house, Thakur Baldev Singh's house, and they get into the Tonga with Hema Malini's character Basanti. And so obviously Viru is the flirt, so he sits in the front with Hema Malini, and Mr. Bachchan sits at the back, and he puts cotton in his ears, and every once in a while he passes a smart aleck comment, which we all know by heart. He says that, she says, oh, but she says her name some 20 times, and she says, but you haven't asked me my name. So he from the back says, Tumhara naam kya hai, Basanti? you know and then when Viru chides him for saying that, oh, you shut up, she's kitni pyari baateं karti hai, to Amitabh Bachchan's character Jay says, pyari nahi, bahut sari baateं karti hain. So from these dialogues. And this entire sequence, which in itself is a standalone, fantastically entertaining sequence written by Salim Javed, I made it into my song where Uday is literally like Viru flirting with Esha Deol, who's like Basanti. And I've got Abhishek's character passing the one-liner comments. And so the entire song for me. So when I said that to my songwriter and I said it to the producer, they all got what I'm saying because we are also filmy. So they got what I'm saying, and that's where the one-liners of Abhishek come in at the end of every couple of lines. In fact, when we were doing the recording of the song, obviously Abhishek was busy shooting for some other film, and we were wondering who do we get to speak these lines just so that we can have an idea of where they come and how they'll sound, And because I would continuously be saying those lines, especially the first one was Abhishek saying that, oh look, he started flirting with this woman again, which in Hindi is ho gaya shuru sala. So I used to keep saying this to everyone. Oh, this is when Abhishek will say this line. And so Preetham, the music director, said to me, Sanjay sir, why don't you only say these lines? And I said, no, I've never dubbed or never said dialogue into a mic ever before. And they said, no, you must do it. So for the scratch version of it, or my voice was the scratch version of all of Abhishek's dialogues. And then
Oh,
when
okay.
Abhishek hears it, when we casually met him once and we say, you got to hear the song, which is Uday's song, but there's a surprise how you are going to be participating in the song. And he heard the voice and he said, oh, Sanju, this is so good. I don't want to dub for it. I think we should keep your voice. It sounds better than mine. I said, no, don't be silly. That's really nice of you to say. But I was just trying to mimic your dad, so, but no. And then Abhishek came much later and he dubbed his lines and, he said, Sanju, I'm going to try and say it like you and all that stuff. So tell me how you said it. I said, say, ho gaya shuru sala. So he says, yeah, he was doing that. But so the whole song is replicating of an entire scene in Sholay, which I have made into my song. And that can only be done by a filmmaker who's eating, breathing, and living Sholay.
That's a very nice homage. You do it in your way, but it's kind of referencing that one
It's
small bit.
absolutely homage, it's respect, it's appreciation, it's admiration. And the last word, which is I'm going to keep on using it in the entire podcast of ours, is celebration.
Right.
What else can a filmmaker do except celebrate all the films that he has seen and try to put them into the films that he's making? Because that's how great cinema is made and great entertainment is made.
Absolutely. Sanjay, we cannot talk about Sholay and not talk about Amjad Khan and Gabbar. Gabbar essentially kind of ushered in the super villain. And I remember Javed Akhtar once mentioned that the template for Gabbar's character was that of a Mexican bandit. But again, the way that they have shaped the character of Gabbar, it doesn't feel out of place in mainstream Hindi film. What's your take on Gabbar Singh and the whole supervillain kind of construct?
Again, the entire credit goes to Salim Javed for this. For example, look at what he's wearing. He's wearing what looks like army clothes. He wears the same clothes right through the film, and they look like army clothes. So he could be a deserter who's deserted from the army. You don't know his background. To show how bad a man he is, uh, you make him confront his three men who failed at a particular job. And then the entire introduction sequence of Gabbar Singh is where the whole kitne aadmi the and all that stuff. And then they all start laughing towards the end of the thing. And then he shoots his three men down. And then he says, Jo dar gaya so mar gaya. And the viewer gets to know the terror of this man who kills his own three men for failing. Imagine what he would do to my protagonist or my good guys in the film. That is the purpose of the scene. And so it's so cleverly done. And if you see the total number of footage, the amount of footage that Gabbar Singh's character has, it's nothing. If you were to do a study of the film and you count the number of scenes in a 3-hour film, he must not be there for more than half an hour. or 40 minutes, and he has such impact on the story and the viewers. Uh, it goes down to the writing and the dialogue and the conceiving of his scenes, and to have a bad guy who's got no background to him, and where is he from, why does he want this, he's just a bad guy, he's a dacoit, and he's an outlaw. He's an outlaw, and it's from the westerns movies, and which
Absolutely.
again Ramesh Sippy must have seen as a teenager, as a young man of in his early 20s. And again, coming back to the correlation with Dhoom, that we had uh, that in mind, that I said that our bad guy, and this I must give credit to Aditya Chopra. He said that our bad guy should not be, he should be a new bad guy. We don't, and John Abraham's character Kabir is a bad guy. We don't know where he's from. We don't know why he's robbing. There's no justification given to him. He's doing it for the money. And he's not got any beautiful girls around him in his swimming pool, in his villa. He's just a bad guy. He's robbing, and he's trying to make his escape and get out of here. The last robbery is probably the last one. He says, we're going to do this and divide the money and go our own ways. And we had a similar sequence in our film where uh, he's hard on one of his own team members who buys an expensive sports car, and he tells him that, no, why did you buy this sports car? Because you're going to come into the eye of the police and the people. Why such a poor guy has a car like this? The only difference was that we made John's character get rid of the car, and before he gets rid of the car over the cliff, he tells his man to jump off, and then he jumps off the car, and then the car goes down the over the hill, and then he tells this guy that you cannot buy a car. So somewhere down the line, he's principled. He's principled. Even in the conception of Gabbar Singh's character, I think the only time that you saw him uh, kill anyone was the first time that we saw him in the film, because the rest of the time you never see him doing anything. And
Yes, it's only when massacres Thakur's.
yeah, and he too has his own logic, and he says that 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 I am the only guy who can save you from Gabbar, and if I'm saving you from Gabbar, then what's wrong if I come and take a little bit of grains and food from you, and in return I'm giving you protection. So he had his own logic. Ramgarh was on his list of protected villages. He would never loot and plunder them. He controlled them with his fear and everything like that. But he never, and even when he's in that song Mehbooba, you never see, he's just appreciating watching a song and dance routine, but he never gets into it. He's not a womanizer. He's in his own space. So again comes the parallel that you what we learned from Sholay, what I am under the influence of, is that to make a bad guy who has high impact, his characterization is something that you need to work hard on and make him stand out from the rest of the bad guys. And so when you come back to the point that you've raised, that let's talk about Gabbar, and you cannot talk about Sholay without talking about Gabbar, is that they made a bad guy like a bad guy never seen before. That he would do the things that he did. He had his own set of rules, which literally we used in the dialogue in my film when John says that, nobody can break my rules, not even me. So if you go to see, Gabbar had his own set of rules. And he said, he cuts off the cop's, Sanjeev Kumar's character Thakur's hands, because that cop had held his throat. And when he was trying to free himself, Thakur had said to him, कि ये हाथ नहीं, ये फांसी का फंदा है. So he says, you're so proud of your hands, I'm going to cut these hands for you. So there was a logic to him. Imagine. He would have not just cut anybody's hands. He said, I'm cutting your hand because you're so proud of them. So yeah, you cannot talk about Sholay without talking about Gabbar Singh and the fantastic performance that he gave, and they were trying to get so many other big actors to do it, but it all fell into place, and they finally got him. for the first couple of days, they were skeptical. A lot of people were skeptical about Amjad Saab's voice and stuff like that. And I think Ramesh Sippy was the one who said that, no, it's unique. Let's keep it the way it is. We should not dub it and stuff like that. And all those little things that he got from his theater background in terms of eating the tobacco and spitting it out. And, I think the touches that I'm sure Mr. Ramesh Sippy must have done was to have his teeth stained all the time, and
Right.
to make him that dacoit and an outlaw of the soil. The guys who don't bathe for months on end, and his
Make him a
hands
very
were,
repelling kind
yeah,
of a
his
character.
hands were
Yeah.
soily and stuff like that, which is what Amjad Saab brings because of his. He was a very intelligent man, a very sharp brain. Amjad Khan
Absolutely.
was.
Yeah.
So he brought a lot to the table on his own. So yeah, you cannot talk about Sholay without talking about Gabbar Singh and Amjad Khan. It's outstanding.
And
And we
Sanjay,
never know. We never know whether Sholay made Amjad Khan or Amjad Khan made Sholay. Whether Sholay made Gabbar Singh or Gabbar Singh made Sholay.
that's true. That's true. He's such an essential part of the puzzle. And one more thing, Sanjay, Sholay for a 1975 film is, remarkably progressive. I mean, I just wanted to mention a couple of bits from the movie.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I was waiting. If
to,
you had not said it, I would say it.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. It's
Thakur's
about.
nod of approval to his widowed daughter-in-law's affection for another man, that to a criminal like Jay. It's pretty progressive for that time. And even Basanti's character, is essentially projected as a strong, independent woman. And there is humor to it.
It's what in the 70s and 80s and 90s was called women's liberation, which today we call women empowerment. Uh, it's there in the dialogue. It's there in the dialogue. Basanti, Hema Malini's character says that everybody asks me that you're a woman and you're doing a man's job, and she says that my answer is that my the horse that's pulling my chariot, my tonga, is a mare. It's not a horse. It's not a stud. It's a mare. And so if she's a female and she can pull the tonga, then why can't I ride it if I'm being a woman? So it's incorporated in the story, in the dialogue, and it's not coming across as if it's preachy. It's coming across as if it's part of the story. And she is an orphan. She's been raised by her mother's sister, and she has no choice. She's making ends meet, and she chooses to go to work every day, and she does something which is a physically difficult job to do, and she does it. That's phenomenal to have that kind of vision. Again, the credit goes to Salim Javed, that how can you be thinking like this about women's liberation, women empowerment, and widow remarriage? Raj Kapoor Saab made an entire film on that. Prem Rog, it's called, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with Padmini Kolhapure and Rishi Kapoor.
Yes.
But here you've got your daughter-in-law who's a widow, who's the only lady of the woman of the house, who probably runs the house, and she wears a white sari and stuff like that. And then at some point they're looking at getting her married off to Jay. It's secondary that he's a criminal or he's this or he's that. The fact that he's open to the remarriage of a widow, and he wants to lead by example by saying that, I'm not going to tell the world that you should allow a widow to get remarried. I'm going to get the widow living in my house, who's my daughter-in-law, and I'm going to get her remarried. And it's done so cleverly and so in such a subtle way in the film that it doesn't come across preachy and you're trying to get a message across. It just actually, if you go to strip it down, Salim Javed are just trying to lift the character of Thakur, and they're trying to give a life to the love story between the unwritten, unspoken love story between Radha and Jay, Amitabh Bachchan's character and Jayaji's character. It's so much is unspoken. That is the beauty, is when writers of the caliber of Salim Javed and a director of the caliber of Ramesh Sippy merge together, that the things which haven't been written and the camera placed by the director and the performances carried out by the actors captures the essence of a love story which is not underlined. It's just a little touch here and just a little touch there, and some great background score with the mouth organ, harmonica playing by Amitabh Bachchan's character, and Jayaji putting the lamps off. It's just few things which are unspoken. And that culminates into the intention of widow remarriage. It's phenomenal. People can write for 100 years, they will not be able to write such scenes or write such films, Himanshu, my friend. It's outstanding. So I think you raise a fantastic point when you say that it was ahead of its time, not only in other aspect, but from a societal point of view, that it touched upon topics which were, uh, you know, uh, it, it was just so
Progressive, yeah.
open-minded,
Yeah.
open-minded and progressive film. Yes.
Yeah, let's and how did we forget that beautiful scene? That's one of my favorite scenes from the film where Jaya Bachchan is lighting those oil lanterns, and where Bachchan is playing the harmonica and watching her. That's just a beautiful scene. And again, I've heard that maybe this is an urban legend or not, but they waited for days to get the right lighting. Sippy and Diveja wanted to get just the right amount of light for that particular scene.
I would believe it. I would believe
Yeah,
it.
I would too. Yeah, yeah. I'm probably they did because it
Yeah.
it
Because it
looks
was shot in magic hour. What we call it is called the magic hour,
right.
which is twilight. And there's a time when the sun is just about to set or it has just set, but the darkness has not just come in. And that's what we in film parlance call it the magic hour. And then when you have those lamps burning and then she's switching them off one by one. So it's got the whole beauty of it. And that someone like Dwarka Devecha can conceive and want to do. And then so you see, in a great film, every stage there is support coming in from someone or the other. The director has a vision, the producer, in his spending of money, supports that vision. When a director of photography, a cinematographer, says that he wants to do this kind of a shot, the director says, I'm supporting you, I'm with you, let's take that shot. When an actor makes a suggestion, I'll do this, I'll do this. For example, there's a scene where Mr. Bachchan's character is sitting on the back of a buffalo and he's walking, and then he sees uh, Jaya Bachchan's character there, and he slides off the back of the buffalo because he doesn't want to be seen by her doing a little bit of tomfoolery. I don't know. It might have been conceived as a scene or written as a scene that he's just running around with the buffalo. And then Mr. Bachchan might have said that, why don't I sit on the back of the buffalo and then I'll slide down because that's a very stylish thing that only an actor can think of. So these are such small things that are done. So when he suggested it, Mr. Ramesh Sippy showed support and said, yes, Mr. Bachchan, do that. It'll be great. So in a great movie, every stage you will see that there's constant support that has to come from various people to various people, and that results in a great film.
Right, right. And just going back to that little scene between Bachchan and Jaya Bachchan, I love that scene, and for two reasons. First of all, it's by itself, it's a great scene, like you said, it's shot in at the magic hour. But I always saw that scene as a companion scene to another Amitabh and Jaya Bachchan film, which is Millie. And there it's just the opposite, where Jaya Bachchan is looking at Amitabh Bachchan's shadow inside a room, and she's just looking at the window. And that's a great scene, shot by Rishida. I always saw that scene as a companion scene to what happened in Sholay, where he's looking at her, in a similar kind of background. So that's why that's a favorite scene of mine as a fan of both of those actors. And what other anecdotes, Sanjay, that you know about? You told me you're one of the biggest fans of this movie, so you gotta share something that a lot of people don't know. I'm gonna put you on spot here.
There's one that I know, that Mr. Yash Chopra was shooting Diwar and Mr. Ramesh Sippy was shooting Sholay practically at the same time. And there was, by strange turn of events and circumstances, a period of about 10 or 12 days and this part of it, Mr. Bachchan has told me himself, is that they were shooting nights in Mumbai for Diwar, and so Mr. Bachchan was flying back and forth for about a week, 10 days or 12 days every day. And the set of Ramgarh, the village, was 40 kilometers outside of Bangalore in south of India in Karnataka. And so Mr. Bachchan would pack up at sunset with on the sets of Sholay. The production car would zip to the airport. It would take him an hour and a half to reach the airport. He'd get onto the flight. He'd land in Mumbai, probably go home or probably go straight to the sets of Mr. Yash Chopra and Diwar, shoot the night shift there from 9:30, 10:30 onwards till about 5 in the morning. Either go home, have a shower or not do that, get into a production car, go to the airport, take the flight to Bangalore, get off at Bangalore, drive in the production car, which is there to pick him up, reach the sets of Sholay, and shoot all day. So he would just get little bit of shut eye on the plane and in the car. And this little bit of doing the back and forth in the car and the flight, Mr. Bachchan has told me himself. I don't know whether it was, I can't remember whether it's 7 days or 10 days or 12 days or 15 days, but there was that period where they were shooting the film simultaneously and he had no choice. It's just the turn of events and the dates got locked in such a way that he had to do it, and he did it, and he did it, and he did it joyfully. And those are two of his greatest ever, I would
All his
say.
films, yeah,
Bachchan.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
love Trishul as well. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
though actors in those days they used to do crazy shifts, and I mean, I've heard these stories that they used to work 5 shifts, and really get like 4 hours of sleep or something, which is just crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that much about Mr. Bachchan, but there were other actors who did that. But Mr. Bachchan, not that he would do one film at a time, because those days, that culture was not there of doing one film at a time. But I think he managed his time a little bit better than others. Because he had his own set of rules that this is how he would work, and he would not tax himself. He would not tax his personal staff and stuff like that, because what happens when an actor does that, the staff get taxed 3 times the amount, the driver and the makeup artist, and they make a lot more money, but still they get very taxed. So I think Mr. Bachchan was very, very specific about not doing those kind of things. But I don't know. Again, I wasn't there. I was a kid that time.
Right, 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 right.
But yeah, these are the things I remember about. What else do I remember about Sholay? Was
Sanjay, let me ask you, what are your first memories of watching it the very first time? And you must have been a kid. Do you still remember the first time you watched Sholay?
I remember the first time. It must have been about 2 or 3 months after it released. Uh, I had gone with some friends of mine, and one of their parents or mother or someone was there, and we went to Minerva, the same cinema hall where it ran for 6 years. I remember seeing it, but I must have been all of what 8.5 years old. But I had seen a lot of films by then because I was an avid film guy. So I think I didn't get the impact of it. It was just
Sure.
another film which I had a lot of fun, and I laughed and I enjoyed the songs, and but the finer details and all that stuff is much later in life, that time. And then I remember an anecdote I'll tell you. When there was a time, I think in the late 80s, I think it was late 80s, before I started work, when they re-released Sholay, and it got released in a cinema hall bang opposite Minerva, which was called Apsara in Mumbai,
Right, right,
South Mumbai,
right.
Apsara Cinema, which was very fascinating cinema because it didn't have a staircase; it had a round path to go up to the balcony and to the upper section. And so we had my friends, 2 friends and I, Kamlesh and Sunil and myself, and we had asked another guy to come with us. So we had 4 tickets, but then one guy backed out, and so we went for the film, and then we were looking to get rid of that extra ticket. And so we were standing outside, and it was houseful. Not shockingly and not surprisingly, the show was houseful, all sold out. And we were wondering who to give this ticket to. And I said, you know what, let's give it to a deserving person. Let's not just give it to anybody, because we could have even sold it for a slightly higher rate. So we were looking and scanning the crowd, and I spotted one guy, and I said, "Are you looking for an extra ticket?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Have you seen this film before?" And surprisingly, he said no. So the ticket must have been about 40 rupees or something like that. So we said, "Here's the ticket. Give us 40 rupees for it." And he had a 50 rupee note, and he didn't have change. So then, me being the filmy guy that I am, I said, "Look here, good sir, let's meet midway in the interval in the cinema when the film breaks to have a few snacks and a few eatables. And tell us whether you want us to give you the 10 rupees back or no. If you think the movie is really good, you tell us." And we met him in the interval because he was sitting next to us, and I kept on asking him, "Are you enjoying the film?" And he was shaking his head like all Indians do, and all of that. And then I asked him at the interval point, I said, "Do you want the 10 rupees?" He says, "No, my friend, I don't want the 10 rupees. I think it is outstanding. It is everything that I've heard it to be. It has outlived my expectation. I'm totally happy. I don't want the 10 rupees." So that's another funny anecdote. And this was, I think, nearly 15, maybe 13 years after the film released, and they re-released it that time. But there's so many anecdotes. I think there's one where I think Mr. Jayaji was had Abhishek in her stomach. She was expecting him, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I think when they talk about this putting off the lights, the lamps, it could be that scene. But I think Jayaji has said in an interview that that's the time there was a little bit of a baby bump.
She was pregnant with Abhishek,
yeah,
right?
she was with Abhishek that time, So that's another anecdote. Characters that they wrote, Surma Bhopali and the jailer and
Right.
Samba and uh,
Yeah, all the
uh,
supporting cast. I mean, just it's tremendous. I mean, right from A.K. Angal to Mac Mohan to Nasrani. I mean, the list just goes on.
McMahon had two lines there,
Yeah,
and everybody remembers Samba.
legend, absolute
When he
legend.
asked him once when he says कितना इनाम रखे हैं हम पर, he says पूरे 50,000. And one other thing, I think he said two dialogues in the film, and everyone knew who Samba was. And for the rest of his life, McMahon was called Samba.
It's amazing how I mean, even Mac Mohan is still a solid actor, and he has done many films. But there was this guy called Mamaji, right? He was one of those gawalas who brings out the grains, and he used to be part of many Bachchan films. He has a substantial role in Coolie as well. But all these people, I mean, they have had barely like 2 or 3 lines, like you said, and they have been probably in around a dozen films or so. But as a lover of Hindi films or Hindi cinema, especially popular Hindi cinema, these guys are legends for us, because we'll never forget their faces. We'll never forget.
Kalia,
Absolutely.
Viju Khote, for all his life, wherever he went, people just yelled out Kalia to him. Goli
Amazing.
Khale, Kalia, and all that stuff. Yeah. It's outstanding. And then we must, before you say that we've come to the end of our conversation, let me tell you the biggest thing about Sholay and the Dhoom 2 connection, because my influence of Sholay is a lifelong thing. It just doesn't get over with Dhoom 1. So when I was confronted with or faced with the situation of the ending of Dhoom 2, we came up with multiple ideas and stuff like that. And then I think we all decided, and I think it was partly Aditya's idea, and then Victor said a bit about it. And then we came to the conclusion that we must have Aishwarya's character, Sunehri, shoot him, but he's not going to actually die. We're talking about Ash shooting Ritik's character, and he goes falling down into the waterfall, and then but he's actually not dead, because they've kind of pre-decided, because there's a nice dialogue that Victor's written that he says to her earlier that क्या कोई किसी से उतना प्यार कर सकता है कि उसकी जान ले ले. And then in that whole confrontation between the four of them at the edge of the cliff, Hrithik Roshan's character Aryan says it again, which is the signal to Aishwarya's character Sunehri that now's the time for you to shoot me. Now, what happens, Himanshu, that this is how you will get into the mind of how a director, in the mind of a director, to see how it works when faced with a particular situation. So here I am saying that I have to shoot this sequence in a manner that the audience believes it. I want the audience to believe that she has shot the man because they loved so much, they loved each other so much. And क्या कोई किसी से इतना प्यार कर सकता है कि उसकी जान ले ले? Because he said, I'd rather die than get arrested. That's what we were taking the film to. And I have to make it believable for the viewer. But there's some oversmart person who's watching the film and say, actually he's acting, he's pretending to be dead and all that stuff. And I'm sure he's going to come back again. I had to rule that out. So what is the device that is used by a director is that you shoot it with in a manner which you're underlining and emphasizing each shot, each frame, the frame rate, the high speed, the slow motion, all that stuff. And I was grappling with how I'm going to shoot this. And 2 days later in my head, I got an idea and I went and shared it with Adi. I told him, I said, I've cracked how I'm going to shoot this. He says, what? I said, I'm going to do a tribute to Sholay.
Oh, wow.
What do you mean? And this is a tribute because now you'll see the layering of the tribute. It goes into tribute for a tribute. Is the fact that like how, and I am aware of the fact that there was a film called Battleship Potemkin made by Sergei Eisenstein, who was called the inventor of the cut, the master of the cut. He cut a shot for the first time and joined it together. And there was a film called, how can I forget it? Kevin Costner and Sean Connery about Al Capone. Which was it?
Untouchables.
Untouchables. So talking so much about Sholay. So in Untouchables, the director of the film, Brian De Palma, one of the finest, best directors ever, pays a tribute to the Battleship Potemkin sequence, which is the scene at the Grand Central Station in New York with the tram going down the steps, where the cop has to choose between saving the baby or shooting at the bad guy, and so cleverly done. And that's it. I read up the interview, I heard the interview, I saw how Brian De Palma had thought about it and spoken about it. He said that I paid a tribute to that. I'm not copying it. I'm paying a tribute to that, and I'm
steps of Odessa.
Right. Yes. So I said, Adi, I'm going to pay a tribute to Sholay. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, the scene where Thakur's family is shot by Gabbar Singh's character. How each person gets the bullet and then they go and it freezes. Then the next person gets shot and the person freezes. And 4 people get shot and the character freezes. And then on the edit, Rameshji goes and shoots the spot where it defreezes, unfreezes, and then the character falls down. I said, I'm going to do the same thing. So Aishwarya's character pulls out the gun and it freezes. She shoots the gun, it gets Hrithik the bullet, and Hrithik goes and freezes. Abhishek turns and he freezes. Uday reacts and freezes. And then I start defreezing it, and then Hrithik defreezes, Aishwarya defreezes, everyone defreezes, and then Hrithik falls down, and then my camera goes like that, and then you see him going down, falling down this way. My plan that's working in my head, Himanshu, is that subconsciously everyone will remember the sequence of Sholay. So not only am I paying a tribute, but I'm working it towards my advantage, that everyone will subconsciously remember the Sholay sequence. And obviously all those people really died in Sholay. And so here too, they will think that this person has really been killed.
Right.
And
There's
when
the trick.
he
Yeah.
when he re-emerges at the end of the film in the epilogue, it has to be a surprise. Oh my God, he's alive. And you're feeling so bad that you didn't want him to die. And then when he's alive, you say, oh my God, he's alive. And these two are really meant for each other. And these two beautiful people should get together. And so I use that as a tribute again to say that this is probably the last time I'll get a chance to pay a tribute to Sholay, but I'm still going to try it in every film of mine. But this was my big thing. And I said that I have to do this so that, and I did it and I pulled it off. And not a single soul thought that Aryan was not dead. I pulled it off so well and so big time that everyone who saw it and said, oh my God, he's really dead. She shot him. And then he came back in the end. And that's my thing for Sholay, man. That my ending to my film becomes believable. It goes down the throat of the viewer, thanks to a man called Ramesh Sippy, who himself was paying a tribute. That is why I told you that it's a tribute within a tribute within a tribute.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a great story, Sanjay. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah,
I did
yeah,
not know
yeah,
that, and I really
yeah, yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. So again, Sanjay, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on the podcast and chatting Sholay with us. And thanks for shedding light on so much of the homage that went into the Dhoom franchise.
Yeah,
To Ramesh Sippy and Sholay. And it's always great to hear from the people who have actually made those films, because we read all kinds of legends on the internet, and you never know which one is true and which one is just
true,
rumors.
true,
There is
true,
all
true,
kind of
true.
stuff on the internet.
True. No, there's nothing more authentic than a podcast with the actual filmmaker and him talking about his own film. Then there's it is absolutely bang on true. Yeah, and no matter how much people can talk about how much they like this film or how much they've heard Sanjay likes this film, uh, but like again, just to go on a quick off tangent, is that I'm such a big fan of Steven Spielberg's first film made for television called Duel.
Yeah, great
That
film.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so that film had the truck as the villain and the bad guy, and there were these shots of the truck. So if you see, there's one shot in Dhoom, the first one, where there's actually a shot of the camera on the road, and this is just after the first robbery where the bikes get into the trailer and the trailer shuts, the back of the trailer shuts this way,
Yes, now
and
that
then
you
there's a
mention it,
now
yes.
there's a camera on the road and literally to show you it comes like this and uh, passes by the camera. That is my one shot tribute to Steven Spielberg's Duel. So like I said, I'm on Tarantino's footsteps, saying that I'm every film I make is going to celebrate something that I've seen somewhere and enjoy the fact, because for me the process of making the film is far more enjoyable than its outcome and the hit status of it and everything like that.
Right, right,
The journey has to be much more enjoyable and memorable than the destination.
right, right.
So that's how I look at things.
Great, great. Thanks again,
And
Sanjay. Really
thank
appreciate it.
you, Himanshu, for giving me this opportunity. It's always a great thing to talk uh, to a fellow Indian who's all the way in San Francisco. But you're doing a good job, and I'm really proud of you. And thanks to my friend Sandeep Loyalka. I think he put the two of us together, right?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Yeah. So thanks. A big shout out to Sandeep there. Sandeep Babu, namaskar, and thank you. And absolute pleasure. And it's like I said in the beginning that you give a director a microphone and ask him to talk about his film and the film that he likes. Uh, there's not enough time for that in the world.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Okay, signing off. Take care. Bye bye.
If you liked the episode, do share this episode on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. And do subscribe to the pod wherever you listen to your pods. Also, please do rate and review the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at loveofcinemasf8. Feel free to reach out there or by email with your comments, feedback, and suggestions. You can find my email in the episode notes. That's the episode. This is Himanshu signing off. And as always, thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.